What's the word? It's your host, Joe Realis and Mario, and we want to welcome you to Let's List 'em. Let's List 'em is the show that counts down topics according to a fun and specific category. Also, Let's List 'em is the show that's giving out a free $150 StockX gift card to one of our first 500 subscribers and a free $150 Visa card to one of our first IG followers. Do not miss out on that. So today on Let's List 'em, we will be counting down 4 of the most famous people you don't know. We as a people, we walk around every day and we take so much for granted, especially the people that influence so much of our lives. Some of the most influential people of our time do not get the respect they deserve. They just don't. So today, we're going to pay some of that respect and inform you on few people that have shaped our lives, the way we talk, and the way we live. So let's do it.
Blinded, trying to find my way. Find my way, find my. When you shine, they try to find shade. Try to find shade, try to find. Be yourself and do your thing. Do your thing, do your thing. Show the world what you will bring. You will bring.
Number 4, Satoshi Nakamoto. Let me start off by saying no one truly knows who this person is. Nobody even knows if he or she is actually Japanese at all. You see, Satoshi Nakamoto is proven to be only an alias by multiple government agencies around the world. But aliases are not all the feds want to sit his ass down for some questioning. Because in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a 100-page essay called The White Pages. And it shared Satoshi's views on banking and privacy and how the government needs to back their ass up. They know too much about their citizens' finances. And to go with this essay, Satoshi created Bitcoin. So unless you refuse to leave 2015, you know what Bitcoin is. It's the blockchain technology with checks and balances, blah, 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 fuck that. Bitcoin is a method of payment that can be used without showing your identity. Your Visa or your MasterCard purchases has a bunch of numbers attached to you, but Bitcoin doesn't. The government, the IRS, or your local banker does not like this. They need to see what's going on with you. So it's speculated that Satoshi controls everything. He or she has a stockpile of Bitcoins and most likely has a stop button, a grab button, and most importantly, a sell button. You see, if Satoshi sells a horde of Bitcoins at one time, the value can drop dramatically, which means the millions of investors worldwide would lose billions. And the government will have a bunch of people at their neck saying, why did you allow this? Why, Senator? Why would you allow them to take my money? So if you invest in Bitcoin like I do, watch out. Satoshi can wake up mad as hell one day and just hit that button. Number 3, Chuck Taylor. Converse All-Stars, also known as Chuck Taylors, are a piece of American fashion history that seem to drop in and out of pop culture with no effort. But who is Chuck Taylor? And why is he the man behind the most sold shoe in history? First released in 1917 for athletic purposes, Converse All-Stars are the US's first mass-produced basketball shoe and have sold more than 1 billion pairs. According to Converse, they sell more than 270,000 pairs a day. Converse has pioneered a lot of marketing schemes used today to simply sell shoes, like giving free gear to the biggest athletic programs in the country, or using famous knowledgeable athletes to sell the shoes. In 1921, Converse chose one of their first athlete salesmen, and his name was Charles Chuck Taylor. Chuck Taylor was a pretty okay basketball player and coach that made a name for himself in several leagues, whether it be in military basketball leagues used to keep the World War II troop spirits up, or professional teams like the Akron Firestones. Chuck was known for his knowledge and love of the game. Chuck was a great fit for Converse because he knew what basketball players needed in the shoe. He preached to Converse on how players needed flexibility and support. Converse took his suggestions and redesigned the shoe in 1920. And upon finishing touches, they slapped his signature on the side, and the shoe we all know today was created. Over the next few decades, Chuck traveled the country and held what he called basketball clinics. Teams with players of all ages attended these camps to gain basketball knowledge from the former pro, Chuck Taylor. And while they were there, maybe they might buy a pair or two. This made Chuck one of Converse's best salesmen because he followed rule number 1 of sales. Don't just give your customer a product, give them an experience. As the 1930s and 40s came and went, some of the former athletes who attended Chuck's camps in their youth were now adults with children of their own. And Chuck's basketball clinic served as one of those father-son bonding events as fathers watched their sons complete the same drills and exercises they formerly did. In 1968, Chuck retired and was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame the very next year. Chuck's 1969 introduction was big because he was listed as a player, coach, contributor, and salesman. Tragically, Chuck died the very same year, and in honor of his life and what he meant to Converse, Converse uses his death date as a frequent shoe release date, which is only right. They need to pay homage to the man that made Chucks, Chucks. Number 2, the Forbes family. If anybody was to ask you, hey, do you want to be on the Forbes list? 99% of the time, everyone is going to say hell yes. And we'd be willing to take whatever came with it. But the crazy part is, most people don't actually know who Forbes is. Just think about that for a second. It would make most of us feel like one of the most accomplished people on the planet to go on the list created by a man we don't know. It's crazy. All around the world, celebrities and other extremely wealthy people are given this sort of superhero aura. The bigger their bank accounts or companies, the bigger their powers are perceived. Arguably, the number one tool used to measure these powers is Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine is the product of 3 generations of the Forbes family and is America's longest running business magazine. First published by Bertie Charles or B.C. Forbes in 1917, Forbes magazine was loved by businessmen all across the country because it simply told you what other wealthy people were doing with their money. The articles, the interviews, and the accuracy of business affairs made Forbes a hit. After B.C. retired in the 1940s, his son Malcolm took over the magazine. And during his reign as chief, Malcolm developed Forbes magazine into what we know it as today. In 1982, Forbes' Richest 400 was introduced, a list that ranks the richest people in the world. Everyone from tech entrepreneurs to wealthy, prominent families. All the richies were in it. And in the 1987 issue of International Billionaires, the magazine showed the world just how accurate it was willing to be. In 1987, Forbes 400 listed drug kingpin Pablo Escobar as the 2nd richest non-American and the 7th richest man in the world. That was scary as hell to governments around the world. A magazine that could just tell the public freely that a drug dealer just exists. Forbes didn't care about the social ramifications. They just wanted to be accurate. In 1990, Malcolm Sr. passed away and his son Malcolm Jr. took over the company. Malcolm Jr. knew that the 75-year-old Forbes brand was already prestigious, so he thought it was time to take it worldwide. In 1998, Forbes Europe was established, and in 2005, Forbes Asia joins the ranks. Now we all know what the Forbes list is now. We can get back to trying to get on it. Number 1, Jack Johnson. Sometimes you can be so good at something that people just start using your name to support accomplishing that task. Like he just Jackie Chan'd his ass. We know that means somebody just got hit with some karate moves. Or he just got mossed, meaning that someone completed an amazing catch over someone, inspired by NFL player Randy Moss. But there is one popular phrase that most people are familiar with, but have no clue of the phrase's inspiration.
Giving it back to you. Don't let him jack you up, back you up, crack you up. This man want to jack you up. Jack you up. Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you yell out hang? Do you fold it in your pocket? Do you lock it in the bank? Do you jack it up?
Jack you up. So who is Jack and why is an ass whooping named after him? Well, Jack is Jack Johnson, the first African American heavyweight champion of the world. So let me tell you a little bit about him. Jack was the son of 2 freed slaves and was one of 9 children birthed by the couple. Jack lived a rough, poverty-stricken life in Galveston, Texas. When I say poverty, I mean poverty. Jack and his family worked in horse stables, train yards, or wherever they can find work to support themselves. Jack always had a good chance at finding employment, especially if it was physical labor, due to his huge stature. Jack's huge physique is believed to be the obvious catalyst of what made him pursue boxing. Jack started training at the young age of 13 and had his first fight at 16. His first fight held a prize of $1.50, and he knocked the dude out like he was fighting for $352 million. Not long after that, Jack was knocking guys out for $25, then $50. Jack was talented and was a local celebrity who brought in big crowds. But that didn't matter to most boxing circuits. Jack was still a black man, and some white boxers refused to even get in the ring against him, including the heavyweight champion, Jim Jeffries, with his scary ass. So Johnson waited. In the early 1900s, American Boxing League were attracting boxers from all over the world, and Johnson knew all he had to do was wait for a guy that wasn't racist to get the belt, and that was it. And it happened. In 1908, Jeffrey lost the title to Tommy Burns, an Australian that jumped on the opportunity to fight Jack when he seen the fight would guarantee him $30,000. And Johnson gave him $30,000 worth of ass whooping to go with that other 30. For 14 rounds, Johnson beat Burns' ass. Even the cops had to jump in and stop the fight. After the commotion, judges ruled Johnson the victor, and he received his first $100,000 check. And like many other champion athletes, this is where the downfall began. The money and fame made him attracted to many women, including white women, in a period where dating outside your race was a big no-no. Johnson didn't turn down the women, shit, he flaunted it. He took women on car rides in his expensive cars, traveled with them, and this infuriated the white boxing fans across the country and put a big target on Johnson's back. While traveling with his white girlfriend, Johnson was arrested for violating the Mann Act, a federal law used to combat prostitution that states no one can take a female over state lines for immoral purposes. Johnson wasn't about to be treated like this. He was the champ, so he ran after he posted bail. Johnson moved to Europe and remained an international fugitive for 6 years. But Jack was miserable. He wanted his fame and his status back. So he moved back to America in 1920 and just decided to go to jail. The hard life of a 1920s prison weighed on Johnson's body, and he just wasn't the same boxer ever again. On June 10, 1946, Jack died in a tragic car accident after hitting a traffic light post. It was the end of a hard life, but a great boxing career. But his story doesn't fully end tragically. In 2018, then President Donald Trump pardoned Johnson and expunged his record. Something Jack's family fought long and hard for, and for good reason. The man was never allowed to finish his career of jacking people up. So I hope you enjoyed the episode of Let's List Them. Here is all my social media contact. Say what up, ask a question, maybe request an episode for me to complete. This has been your host, Joe Rillis and Mario, and we thank you for watching. Hit that like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And remember, be cool, be calm, and be there for somebody. We out.